I met Daniel in college. Charming, ambitious, emotionally open. We married at 26, high on dreams and deep conversations about loyalty, growth, and freedom. For the first few years, things were stable. But slowly, I noticed he became more emotionally distant, though physically affectionate remained intense, almost hyper-focused. One night after wine and laughter, he hesitated, then said, "There's something I need to share, and I hope you won't think less of me." He confessed a long-standing fantasy he had kept buried, watching me with another man, specifically with two black men. I was stunned. I laughed nervously at first, thinking it was some experimental joke. But over weeks, he brought it up gently, then more insistently. He read stories to me, sent me articles about ethical non-monogamy, and said it could spice us up. I wasn't sure what to feel. Curious, flattered, confused, slightly manipulated. Eventually, I agreed. Not because I fully wanted to, but because I feared what would happen if I didn't. Would he drift further away? Would he stop desiring me? So it happened. A planned encounter, two men he'd connected with on a lifestyle forum. He watched, filmed. I participated. I felt surreal, like I wasn't even in my own skin. And after? The silence in our bedroom was louder than anything I'd ever heard. He smiled, told me I'd made his fantasy come true, but I cried in the shower, unsure why. What followed was emotional detachment on both sides. He became oddly guilt-ridden, while I struggled with a hollow sense of betrayal. Not because of what I did, but because I didn't know who I had done it for. It wasn't infidelity by definition, we'd both agreed, but it felt like something had died in our marriage. My agency, maybe. Or the illusion of mutual emotional safety. In the days that followed that night, Daniel walked around lighter, as if he had finally scratched an itch that had haunted him for years. He became unusually attentive, bringing me coffee in bed, caressing my shoulder as I worked, calling me his queen, with a renewed spark in his eyes. On the outside, everything appeared revitalized. But inside, something had shifted for me. It wasn't the sex. It wasn't the men. It wasn't even the act itself. It was the realization that I had crossed a boundary within myself that I hadn't fully acknowledged existed. I had said yes because I thought it would bring us closer, but what it actually did was expose how far apart we already were. I started feeling distant from my own body. My thoughts spiraled at night, wondering whether he had always seen me as a player in his fantasies rather than as his partner. Was I ever the center of his desire, or had I always just been part of a bigger scene in his mind? We stopped making love for weeks. We slept next to each other, but our skin barely touched. His excitement had faded, and so had mine. He grew quiet, consumed by something I couldn't name at the time. One night, as we sat silently eating dinner, I asked him, "Did I do it right?" He looked up, fork paused midair. "What do you mean?" "The night. Was it what you imagined?" I pushed, needing to hear something, anything, that would make the confusion make sense. Daniel dropped his fork and sighed. "I don't know. I thought it would feel different." "Different how?" "I thought it would bring us closer. I thought watching you like that would make me, I don't know, appreciate you more, want you more." "Want?" I swallowed hard. "But it didn't?" He shook his head slowly. "Now I just feel guilty." That was the moment I realized he hadn't wanted it just for himself. He had wanted it to fix us. And I, in my quiet desperation, had gone along with it for the same reason. But we were wrong. So wrong. As the weeks passed, I began having vivid dreams. Dreams where I was walking through endless hotel hallways, doors opening to versions of myself I didn't recognize. In one dream, Daniel was behind a camera, directing me like an actress. I'd wake up sweaty, heart pounding, with a heavy sadness I couldn't shake. Eventually, I brought it up in therapy. Our couple's therapist, a calm woman named Arlene, listened as we explained everything. She didn't flinch. She'd heard it before, apparently. This isn't about sex, she said softly. This is about emotional permission and hidden power struggles. She asked me if I had really consented, or if I had agreed under emotional duress. That word, duress, hit me like a wave. I had never framed it that way in my mind. But the truth was, I felt I didn't have the right to say no, not without risking our connection. And that wasn't consent in its purest form. Daniel sat quietly during most of those sessions. He looked ashamed but also confused. I didn't force her, he'd say over and over. She said she was okay with it. And technically, I had. I said yes. I even dressed up for the occasion, smiled, played along. But as Arlene reminded him, a yes built on emotional obligation is not the same as enthusiastic consent, especially when someone's saying yes because they're afraid of being left behind. Our therapy sessions became confrontational, then revealing. We started unpacking our pasts. Daniel admitted that the fantasy had stemmed from years of repressed feelings, being bullied in school, being raised by a father who never expressed affection, being taught that power was a way to earn love. He cried one night, shaking, and said, "I didn't know I was trying to control you. I thought I was letting you in." I cried too, not because he was wrong, but because I understood. And that terrified me. We are still together now. Some days it feels like we've made progress. Other days we barely speak. We don't talk about the night anymore. Not in detail. But its shadow is always there. In the way I hesitate before saying yes to anything. In the way he scans my face now, always unsure if I mean what I say. We've started rebuilding trust, not just between each other, but within ourselves. I've learned that loving someone doesn't mean surrendering your emotional boundaries. And he's learning that fantasies lived out without true mutual readiness can fracture more than just intimacy. They can tear at the foundation of identity itself. Infidelity isn't always about cheating in the traditional sense. Sometimes it's about betraying yourself, your needs, your instincts, your inner voice. And in that sense, we both had strayed. This isn't a story of eroticism or taboo. It's a story of quiet emotional erosion. Of two people who thought they were trying something bold and freeing, only to realize they were both searching for closeness in the most disconnected way. And maybe the most honest thing we've done since then is admit how lost we both were.